Okay, it's Monday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit ahead of time and just scraped all the questions off the first couple of pages, and we're going to answer them now with some footage of Dragon Ball FighterZ plays in the background, because it's a better game than Overwatch. And if you're wondering which side I'm on, just look for whichever side started with Android 21. So, yes, also I missed Sunday, so I'm wearing the squid of shame now as penance. I apologize. So first up, other than a Mercy Pocket, how do you support an Ashe? The simplest way is just peel for the Ashe, really, which most supports can do. You can sleep the person that's jumped on the Ashe, you can boop them away, you can, if you're playing Zen, you can put Harmony Orb on her and Discord on the person that's diving her, you can shield bash them, peel for the Ashe. Batista can throw the Immortality Field on him. If you're playing Batista with Ashe, you can throw the Amplification Matrix in front of Bob specifically. Don't throw it in front of Ashe. That usually... It's very hard to do that in a way that's, going to be helpful on a lot of maps. It's much more consistently useful to put it in front of Bob, unless you think Bob's about to get just absolutely fucked by some crowd control, which is frequently an issue that befalls Bob, so... But that's a good way. Yeah, those are, the ways where, Ashe is gonna get dove. Ashe has, decent survivability when she's getting dove anyway, because of the coach gun and the, dynamite. And she can always just start machine gunning the person if she has to, but... Yeah, peeling for the Ashe, pretty much, which most supports can do. The worst one for peel is obviously going to be Zen, but you can still put Harmony Orb on the Ashe, Discord on the person diving her, and help, fight the person that's diving them. And, yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. That's how you do it. So, next up is, how do you deal with Widow as other hit scans? And I'm not going to answer that question myself. I'm going to directly quote somebody from the thread that this was posted in, because they fucking nailed it, and I'm not going to give a better explanation than they did. So this comes from Burrito Basher on Reddit. Basher without an E, just an R at the end. And they said, there are 3 ways to counter a hero. 1, hard counter by killing them. 2, soft counter by pressuring or negating their impact. 3, denying them opportunities to thrive. As Ashe, you can hard counter by killing her. You can soft counter by firing her in her direction. This lets the Widow know that you know, so she'll have to continue playing safe. You can soft counter by contesting high ground or positions by either taking the high ground yourself or having sight lines to the high ground. But as Ashe, you only want to do this when it's mid-range duel or it's in your favor. You can deny her opportunities by throwing dynamite, which will force her to go to a health pack or call for heals. You can also deny by sitting behind a shield. These positions vary from map to map, so I can't tell you an exact position that works for any map. For dueling tips, take off angle since she has a small FOV while scope. She won't be able to see you, or use your coach gun to rapidly close the distance to a mid or short range duel. And this holds true for most of the DPS. This is also true if you're playing, a support. The best thing to do, Annas get, baited into fighting Widowmakers all the time. Widow is, dramatically favored in that matchup unless you have something going for you. You're going to get the drop on her, or you have an uncontested line of sight because you're behind a shield, or you're just playing around cover. One of the easiest ways to counter Widow is just, don't be in a position where she can easily pick you. Which basically means play around cover and shields and don't fucking peek Widowmaker unless you're really confident that you're going to beat the Widowmaker. Which, is going to be very dependent on the person that you're playing against, and also the position you're in. I was so mad this worked right here in this game. I was thinking at the time, I bet Ginyu's gonna wake up and try to body swap with me, and he did, and I still got fucked by it anyway. So now I'm playing Ginyu, and I've got no fucking clue how to play Ginyu, so I'm just like, oh Jesus Christ, I hope he doesn't know how to play Android 21 either. Anyway. So, yeah, that, and that's, that's true of also, Ashe and McCree as well, one of the easier ways to counter them is just, like, don't put yourself in a position where you're exposed to them, and then what are they gonna do, right? Like, they're gonna have to go into a weird position or something to actually get you, which is hopefully gonna be punished by your teammates, but, you know, that'll vary a lot as well. So, yeah, basically that guy nailed it. And I'm not going to be able to give you a better explanation than that. And you can apply that to the other hit scan DPS as well. McCree, you want to be really, you want to be a lot closer to the Widowmaker, which is going to be hard depending on the map, but if you can get a different angle on her, you're going to be at an advantage. If you can, like, get up behind her or something, like, that's very map dependent, but imagine you're at, like, attacking Route 66, first checkpoint. Widows love to stand on, like, the, rock formation to the side of the gas station. If you're attacking as McCree, you can go up from the mine on the second floor and usually surprise the Widowmaker because she is looking down the street rather than at the mine entrance. Soldier, you know, he's a really long-ranged hero already, so you can harass the Widowmaker just by shooting her in her general direction. And even though, like, you know, realistically, you won't kill the Widowmaker by doing this, but you're at least making her think about shit, right? Like, you're jostling her aim around, you're making her take some damage, stuff like that. And, you got Helix Rocket as well, which Widowmakers frequently get smacked by. And, yeah, you already described the Ashe, like, that's pretty much what you do. So there you go. So, next up is, hold on, there we go. Next up is, should I just ignore people screaming about what I've picked and play whatever I find fun, or will the stuff considered weak hinder me from climbing? This was coming specifically from a Mercy player who was getting yelled at for picking Mercy because Mercy's not meta right now. And, I've always advised people to just play whatever you want to play. There's nobody in the game that's completely unviable. Spoiler warning, there's another question about viability in here, and, like, I got wrecked by a Genji earlier today. So, and people tell you Genji is unplayable right now. I got wrecked by a Genji in, like, High Diamond Low Masters earlier today. So, you can play whatever the fuck, dude. Some heroes are gonna have to work harder than others will, but there's nobody in the game that's completely unviable, so you play whatever you want to play, and just fucking ignore people, basically. Sometimes it's, you know, it's gonna make it harder, to climb with some heroes. Like, if you like, want to play Bridget, it's gonna be hard for you to play Bridget right now. Now, you can definitely do it. Someone in the Discord, our Discord earlier, was showing that a player named Violet now is occupying 4 of the top 500 spots playing just Bridget, basically. So, you can do whatever. You might have to work harder for it, but if you're playing Bridget, you're going to have to really work for it. You're going to have to really work with it. But to be honest, you know, obviously you can make it work, can't you? It's just, you're gonna have to be more willing to put more effort into these things. The thing with Mercy is that some team comps just make it very hard to get value out of Mercy, because the thing that Mercy brings that the other supports don't is that she has damage boost, basically. She also has Resurrect, but Resurrect is very difficult to use in a lot of situations because the person needs to have died in a convenient location for you to res them, which is frequently not what they do, sadly. So, you know, damage boost is the most consistent utility that she has, and some team comps will just not benefit from damage boost very much. Because sometimes you're going to be playing with, like, Rein, Zarya, Genji, Tracer, fucking Batista, right? Mercy's damage boost is going to get very minor use in that kind of team comp, because when good damage boost targets are basically, like, Ashe, McCree, Hanzo, Widow, Bastion, Junkrat, you know, those people. And, you know, it's a fairly sizable chunk of the DPS roster, but sometimes you get nobody. You'd get nobody a surprising amount of the time. Because even if it's like, Doomfist, Reaper are your 2 DPS, which is extremely likely to be the case right now, then Mercy doesn't really get to damage boost those people very often. They're fine people to damage boost, but for someone like Doomfist, it's massive overkill to damage boost him most of the time. And Reaper and Doomfist both will be in positions where it's difficult for you to get to as Mercy, so, you know, that's the problem with Mercy most of the time for me, is just there's, like, frequently no good target for her damage boost. Half the time you're gonna end up damage boosting like an Orisa, which is okay, like, she's an okay damage boost target, but it's just really sad compared to damage boosting like an Ashe, who can suddenly one-shot people from full health if you're damage boosting them, right? So her utility is just very limiting compared to some of the other supports. Because, like, Speed Boost is always good. Moira's Self-Sustain is always good, you know. Immortality Field and Amplification Matrix are basically always good. Not always, but basically always. So Mercy just ends up being fairly limited in her utility. That's her main issue. But no, she's definitely not unplayable or anything. You fucking do you, Chief. We're playing a video game. Fucking have fun playing the video game and play whoever you want. No one's unviable. So next up is, are Horizon and Paris that bad? Since they're going to be taken out of the competitive map pool soon. Yes, they are. So the thing is that it's not really Horizon Paris specific, it's more to do with the 2CP game type. It's just that Paris and Horizon are the 2 worst examples of the 2CP match type, right? Because 2CP maps all have this problem, where they're extremely snowball heavy. You're either gonna roll over the enemy team, like, extremely hard, or you're gonna sit there stalling out for, like, 8 minutes, right? There's very rarely an in-between point for these maps, so it's just kind of not fun to play on them for these reasons. But, like, map-wise, there's always they have these specific issues, where Horizon has this issue where it has no good choke point for the first checkpoint, making it extremely obnoxious to defend. And then the second checkpoint has, like, a few choke points, but it's still extremely difficult to actually control the point unless you snowball on them, so it tends to... The first one is usually a shit show one way or the other, and then the second one is also a shit show one way or the other, but it usually ends up being really grinding. And because there's only 2 capture points for these maps, they're the most likely to be, like, extremely long matches where you're going to be in overtime forever and play, like, multiple rounds. The longest game I've ever played was still a game on Horizon where it went 8-9. We lost, by the way. And that game took, like, 30 to 40 minutes. Somewhere in that range. It was fucking awful, dude. Paris is a real shit show because the first checkpoint is like... Eichenwald used to be this way, where the first checkpoint was absolutely fucking ridiculous because the choke point only had one way through it. Paris has this exact issue, where there's only one way through that checkpoint. Now, what I thought they might do was add a second door to the bakery, so you could try and go through that. Basically exactly what they did to Horizon, where they put a door in the tunnel on the right-hand side, so you could go that way. But no, they decided they'd rather just fuck it and take it out, which is very Blizzard, to be honest with you. And then the second checkpoint, again, there's multiple ways you can take, but they're all obnoxious ways to take, and then Paris is still just like this big ol' open space, where the second checkpoint, that is, it's just a big ol' open space that's very hard to control, and you're extremely vulnerable to big AoE ultimates like Blizzard, Self-Destruct, things like that. They're very annoying maps to play on for these reasons. And then the other thing, this is a problem on a few maps, but is usually also most keenly shown off by the 2CP maps, is the fact that they have absolutely fucking ridiculous spawns. Like, the walk back from the second checkpoint to let me start that again. The walk back to the first checkpoint on defense for Paris is legitimately like 30 seconds if you don't have any movement abilities. Like, it is extremely fucking long. And there are other maps that have this issue. Numbani is also fucking ridiculous with its spawn points, even though that's a hybrid map, usually the most balanced map type. Numbani's second checkpoint is ridiculous because it has a walk back for the defending team that is comparable to a 2CP map on a hybrid map. So it's really fucking stupid. So it's not exactly 2CP specific to have bad spawns. King's Row also has a stupid spawn after the first checkpoint. Even the first checkpoint is kind of dumb, but not as bad. And King's Row is widely regarded as being one of the most well-balanced maps. And it still has this issue of fucking ridiculous spawn points. But 2CP maps universally, like, have this ridiculous spawn point issue. And Paris and Horizon are two of the biggest offenders in this regard. So yeah, these are, like, all the issues that they have. And it's a 2CP thing, right? Like, Hanamura has this issue where there's, like, this big choke point at the start that's really hard to get through, that only really has one way through. The window is there, but, like, not particularly useful for most comps. And it has, like, a ridiculous walk back for the first checkpoint. And then the second checkpoint, it has an obnoxious choke point. A couple options, but an obnoxious choke point, a big open space. Like, Hanamura is very Horizon-esque, but it is not as bad as Horizon is. So there you go. And it's basically like they're such snowball-dependent maps that they're just, like, really fucking obnoxious, dude. No one wants to deal with them. Hopefully we just eventually take all of them out, please. Fuck that shit. They're gonna add push in Overwatch 2. Let's just take out all the 2CP maps and replace them with push. It's possible push will be as bad or worse than 2CP, but it's hard to imagine it being as bad or worse than 2CP, to be honest with you, but only time will tell. So there you go. Yes, they are that bad. Thank God, they're going away. So next up is, should Orissa's Supercharger be used in conjunction with an ultimate, such as Visor, Blade, Barrage, etc., or should it be used without DPS ults to help win a fight you might not otherwise? So, Orisa fundamentally has a support ultimate. And this is true of all support ultimates except Transcendence and Sound Barrier, because those are defensive ultimates. They're being used for very specific situations. With those, without excluding those two ultimates, all support ultimates you want to use as early in the fight as you possibly can, because you want as many members of your team to benefit from them as possible. So you want to use Orissa's as early in the fight as possible. It is possible that you'll win a team fight without using an ultimate because you used the bongo, but this is extremely unlikely to be the case. An underappreciated thing about the Supercharger is that it's going to help your team, broadly, build their ultimates significantly faster. So if you put your ultimate down at the start of the fight and you've got like 3 people that are close to having an ultimate, or like halfway to an ultimate, you're going to make it much more likely they're going to build up their ultimate during this fight so that they can actually use it either in this fight or the preceding fight, either way. Whereas they might not if you don't use the Supercharger. So there's that. It also has this tendency, like, it has a psychological effect on the enemy team when you use it, where if you put it down at the start of the fight and it's able to sit there for the entire length of the fight, that's a dramatic amount of value that ultimate gave, right? Like, it's up for a long time, and it's giving your team a pretty beefy amount of bonus damage. So they don't want to just be taking the Supercharger damage the entire time, right? So they have to either give up on the push to, like, wait for the Supercharger to go away, or they have to try really hard to get to the Supercharger. So it can have this effect where it draws, like, massive aggro from the enemy team, thereby creating some space for your teammates as, like, flankers and divers suddenly dedicate all their effort to trying to kill the bongo. Maybe not even them, maybe just the entire team, enemy team will dedicate their efforts to getting the bongo. Or they have to play more conservatively so they aren't just taking a bunch of bonus damage. Either way, like, it's beneficial for your team overall. So, these are basically the big reasons to use it early in the fight, though, are it's a support ult, you want everybody to benefit from it, and it's going to help your teammates charge their ultimates a lot faster. So, there you go. It sometimes is worth saving it to use to combo with an ultimate, but I would only use it to combo with something like Graviton. Because that's when, like, it's gonna be difficult to put the bongo somewhere where it's gonna be tethered to, like, a blade or a barrage, because Pharah is gonna be approaching from behind, usually, so is Genji. And Genji's going to be going all over the place, so he's really likely to break line of sight from the bongo, like, immediately, especially since people are going to be retreating away while he's using the blade. And Barrage, like, it either kills the whole team or it kills nobody. A lot of the time, to be honest. Like, Barrage is that way as an ultimate. So, I'd only use it for something that is going to make your team be dumping damage in an area. So, something like Graviton, Earth Shatter, Blizzard, maybe Gravitic Flux. Something that's, because your whole team is going to be dumping damage into this area. So that's when the bongo is going to be getting the most use, because your whole team is going to be doing more damage to multiple members of the enemy team, which is going to make them die that much faster. I wouldn't combo it with a DPS ultimate like Blade or Barrage. I'd combo it with these utility, like, big team fight ultimates like Graviton and Blizzard instead. Because then more people are likely to benefit from it rather than hedging all your bets on... Because, like, fundamentally then, like, if you use it just to combo with one DPS ultimate, you're using an AoE ultimate, a team-wide ultimate, to boost one person specifically, which is just a little bit lacking in ambition for my taste, to be honest with you. So I'd rather use it for those teamfight ultimates instead, rather than DPS ultimates. So there you go. So next up is, let me just start this next game, actually. Next up is, as a gold support wanting to climb, is it better to flex and be able to play any hero that fits within the comp, or stick with one or two mains? So, since they've implemented role queue, I think it is, if you play tank or support, you're more incentivized to be able to play a wider range of hero, because now you can just, like, guarantee that you're going to play these roles. So yeah, if you're playing these roles, it behooves you to be able to play more people in the role, but you don't have to at all. Like, you can just play one or two, and that's absolutely fine. This is true for both tank and support. DPS as well, you only need to play a couple, dude. Ideally, you can play more, but it's not mandatory. I play tank, and I play Sigma, and I play Reinhardt. That's it. I don't play any of the other tanks. Mostly just because I don't like them, to be honest with you. Like, I like Sigma, and I like Reinhardt. So those are the ones I play. They're also just the ones I'm best at. Like, there have been multiple points in time where it has been better for me to play Orisa. Right now, it would be good if I could play Orisa. I fucking hate playing Orisa, dude. Like, I've never been particularly good at Orisa, and I've never really cared to put that much effort into playing her. I just hate her. I just don't like her playstyle. I like Toes more because he's kind of like a midpoint between Orisa and Reinhardt, so he's a little bit more my speed, to be honest with you. So I like Toes more than I like Orisa, and those are just the two I play. I've played Reinhardt at all points in time, even during the multiple points in time where people have told me that Reinhardt is unplayably bad. He's still always been the tank I've been best at, and he's always still been the tank I've seen the most consistent results on. If you're really good at a hero, it doesn't matter who that hero is, you should probably be playing that hero. Like, it doesn't matter all other aspects. Like, it doesn't matter if a pick is better for your comp versus the enemy comp, whatever, meta-wise, it doesn't matter, because the most important aspect of the hero of what you're picking should be your skill with the hero. That should trump all other things, because doesn't matter if it's better for a pick versus the enemy team or your team. If you don't know how to play that hero, you won't be able to capitalize on why it's better. So don't do it if you don't know how to play him. If you're interested in learning to play him, that's fine. By all means, you do you, buddy. But you don't have to. You can just play a couple heroes, and that's absolutely fine, dude. It's not a big deal. That's what I've always done, and it's always been fine for me. Yeah, so there you go. Just play a couple heroes if you really want to, dude. Doesn't matter. For some people, like, they really enjoy being able to play multiple heroes, and that's great. You know, they like really being flexible and being able to counterpick a lot of people, so if that's your bag, go for it. But it is more work. That's the thing, is the more heroes you want to play, the more work you're going to have to put into the game. And, you know, I'm a lazy fuck. I'd rather just be really good at a couple heroes and not have to learn a bunch of them, to be honest with you. DPS, same deal. You only have to play a couple. Like, it's not a big deal. DPS, I think ideally you should be able to play a wider range of them, because DPS is the role that is most likely to be counterpicking the enemy team. So, it behooves you for DPS more than the others to be able to play a few different heroes. Like, ideally, I'd say you could play, like, a long range, a flanker, and then a sort of, like, utility one as well. So, like, if you can play, like, Ashe, Hanzo, Mei, that's, like, fine, because Ashe is, like, the long range, hit scan, and then, Mei's the utility one, and then Hanzo is, like, the DPS one, you know, the big DPS one. I missed out flanker in there, didn't I? If you could play, like, I'll change that around a little bit. If you can play, like, Ashe, Mei, Reaper, then you've covered all the bases. You've got the long range, you've got the utility, and you've got the flanker. You know, something like that. But, again, you don't have to. If I'm playing DPS, I only play Ashe. She's the DPS I like the most. She's the one I play. It's fine. So, you know, DPS, you're more incentivized to be able to play a lot more heroes, because you're probably you're the role most likely to be counterpicking the enemy team, but, like, again, you do you, dude. Not a big deal. Play whatever the fuck. So there you go. Next up is Genji viable? Short answer, yes. Like I said earlier, I got dunked on earlier today by a Genji, and this was in High Diamond, Low Masters, so there you go. He was working with his Ana, so, you know, that's obviously helpful. But he was really good at Genji, dude. Like, he absolutely fucking clapped us. And I'm talking clapped us. It was, on, Busan, and it was like we never captured the checkpoint bad. Like, the Genji absolutely fucking annihilated us, and it wasn't even close. So, yes, Genji is viable. You know, anecdotal evidence. So there you go. That one game that I played earlier today. But yeah, Genji's viable. People will tell you Genji's not viable. Like, nobody in the game is unplayably bad. Nobody. Nobody at all. Doesn't matter. Is X viable? Yes, X is viable. It doesn't matter who X is viable. No one in the game is unplayably bad right now. Again, some you're gonna have to work harder on than others to make it work, but no, you can definitely make it work. People will tell you Tracer and Genji are like the two worst DPS in the game right now, followed by Soldier. And I still see all of those heroes do well in games. The one I actually see do the least well consistently is actually Soldier, rather than Genji and Tracer, but I still see them do well. You're gonna have to work harder than some other people will. You're gonna have to work harder than a Reaper would, but you can do it, dude. Fucking go all out. You really like Genji? You fucking play Genji. You really like Tracer? You play Tracer, dude. As long as you're trying to win, I genuinely couldn't care less who you're playing. Like, that's literally the only thing that matters to me, is that you're playing and trying to win. All other elements are completely irrelevant to me. So, yes, Genji is viable. Don't worry about whoever you're thinking, are they viable? They are viable. Don't sweat it, dude. Play the video game. Have fun. It's a video game. So next up, and this is the last question for today's video, is how do I balance my focus in the game? And this person was talking about, basically, they listed, like, all aspects of the game. Like, I am trying to, like, track my team's cooldowns, enemy team's cooldowns, ultimates, my team's position, enemy team's position, but they basically listed this whole thing. And basically they're like, I can't keep track of all of it, what do I do, how do I divide my focus? So, I think I said this, like, last week or the week before. This is one of those things that people, like, super outplay themselves on, where they, like, worry about these things to a ludicrous degree when they don't have to. Where they bog themselves down with all this information, because this guy's in gold. This guy was in gold asking this question. He does not need to keep track of all of these things. So, first off, if you're trying to learn all of these things, which, you know, great if you can, don't try and focus on improving all of these things at the same time. You do not want to be working on tracking your team's positions, enemy team's positions, your team's cooldowns, enemy team's cooldowns, enemy ultimates, your ultimates. You don't want to work on all of those things at the same time. You pick one thing at a time and focus on that. So you decide, right now, I'm going to focus on getting better at tracking the enemy team's ultimates. And that's all you focus on doing. Right, you focus on improving that aspect of your game. You don't add on the other things at the same time. And then once you have gotten adept at tracking the enemy team's ultimates, you add another one in. So you say, alright, I'm going to get better at tracking the enemy team's ultimates. Then, after you've done that, you decide, alright, next I'm going to work on tracking the enemy team's cooldowns. And then you hard focus on improving that aspect next, until that just becomes second nature as well. Then, once you've done that, you go, alright, now I'm going to track my team's ultimates. And then you just keep going until you have satisfied everything that you're trying to improve on. You don't do them all at once, because you're just going to overload yourself, and you're going to see such slow glacial progress that you might as well have not bothered. Focus on one thing at a time. But you also do not need to do all of these things. So, you know, I think we talked about what is game sense, basically, broadly. Like, how do I improve, like, game sense? I don't worry about tracking the enemy team's cooldowns and my team's cooldowns, because this is, frankly, not that useful unless you are trying to min-max every little aspect of your gameplay. The only cooldowns I track are, like, the ones I'm most likely to deal with on the enemy team. So I worry about tracking, like, Roadhog's ultimate, McCree's flashbang, stuff like that, and that's kind of it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't worry about tracking the other ones. If I'm playing Reinhardt, I'll track, like, the enemy team's Reinhardt's Fire Strike. But, like, that's it, dude. And I don't worry about my team's cooldowns at all. If they got them, they got them. I don't have the capacity to worry about that many things, basically. And frankly, they are usually not worth worrying about to a super minute degree, outside of the really big abilities like Roadhog's Hook or McCree's Flashbang, stuff like that. As for tracking ultimates, people outplay themselves with ult tracking all the fucking time, dude. You can really break it down super easy and just divide them into two categories. This is what I do. I divide the ultimates up into two categories: fast charging ultimates and slow charging ultimates. Fast charging ultimates are like Coalescence, Earth Shatter, there's another fast charging ultimate. Deadeye is pretty fast charging, you know, Bob is pretty fast charging. And for fast charging ultimates, you can just round up saying, like, a team fight has happened. Did they use their ultimate? Then they probably have it now, or they are really close to having it. Like, a fast charging ultimate is going to build up over the course of one team fight. So a team fight ends. If they used it, if they didn't use it, you can assume they have it now, or they are very close to having it if they don't already have it. And then you also you have slow charging ultimates, so like Sound Barrier, Graviton, Gravitic Flux. These are like slower charging ultimates. These are ones that are going to take two or three team fights to charge up, but usually two. So once 2 team fights have elapsed, you can say, alright, Lucio probably has Sound Barrier now, or is really close to having it. Sigma has Gravitic Flux now, or is really close to having it. Zarya has Graviton Surge, or is really close to having it, you know? And you can just round up like that. That's what I do. And that's good enough, because that is basically how it goes. It is very rare that you're going to be in a circumstance where somebody builds up their ultimate just from poking and prodding phases of the game. Someone like Moira, it's very feasible that she's going to build her ultimate up during the first team fight. Coalescence is like that fast charging. So like she's probably the one most likely to build her ultimate up from like poking and prodding outside of like maybe an Ashe. So you can just, like, round up like that, and that, like, super simplifies the issue, and you don't have to worry about it much more than that. Like, obviously, it's great if you can track it to a finer degree than that, because you can, it's definitely gonna benefit you to be able to say things like, it feels like the enemy's, soldier, like, really didn't get a lot of value that team fight. Like, I saw him having to reposition constantly because he couldn't get a line of sight, you know, stuff like that. So you can assume he's gonna take longer to charge his ultimate now based off that information. Like, it's great if you can track that, but it's by no means necessary to track it to that fine of a degree. So don't worry about it if that's, like, too much for you. You can simplify it much more than that. So anyway, the question more specific, getting back to the question, it was, how do I balance my focus in the game? And you pretty much, like, you want to worry, the thing you should worry most about is, like, your own positioning. Right, like, this is a game sense thing. You need to worry about where you're standing at all points in time. So this is also the thing you should focus on improving first, if it's what you struggle with, because positioning is something you are doing the entire game. So the sooner you can get positioning down to just being muscle memory, the more mental bandwidth you will have to worry about other things. So focus on your positioning first and improving that. Because that will massively improve your life if you can just position off of muscle memory, rather than having to constantly think about where am I standing and stuff like that. For specifically improving positioning, we're basically talking about, like, playing around cover and shields as much as you can. If you're playing around a shield, you're still in a position where you can get to cover if you need to. You know, how far do I need to go to get to safety? How close am I to my teammates? Should I be closer because they've got somebody that's trying to bully me? Should I be further apart from them because they're trying to hit us with an AoE team ultimate right now? You know, stuff like that. Is good to do. And then the other aspect of positioning is, if you know me, I like to think about things in terms of circles around people, right? So your positioning, broadly speaking, is trying to maximize your zone of threat while mitigating the enemy zone of threat as much as possible. This kind of ties into the Widowmaker question from earlier, where we're trying to avoid being in a position where we're going to get bullied by Widowmaker, right? So this is how I think about it, and I'm going to draw on the screen, actually, to help illustrate my point slightly. So, so we've got this boy over here. This is Roadhog, right? Roadhog's zone of threat is 20 meters, because that's his hook range. So he's got a circle, I imagine a circle around him like this, 20 meters, right? So 20... Right, so that's Roadhog. Now imagine we're playing Soldier, right? So we're over here. We'll change the color for this, shouldn't we? We're over here. We're playing Soldier. Now, Soldier's effective range is longer than Roadhog's because Soldier's fall-off range starts at 25 meters. So, you know, he's more effective beyond... He's still effective beyond 25 meters because of the nature of having an automatic weapon that doesn't deal that much damage per bullet. So you can go beyond this, but we'll go bare minimum 25 meters, right? That is larger than 20 meters, which is Roadhog's effective range. So if we're playing Soldier and we're trying to beat Roadhog, we're trying to get him so that our zone of threat circle, which is bigger than his because it's 25 meters, we're trying to get our 25 meter circle to overlap Roadhog while avoiding having his 20 meter circle overlap us. And therefore we have completely negated risk from Roadhog because he can't kill us beyond 20 meters, right? We have to get him to hook range because there's nothing else he can do to us. He can, like, poke us with his gun from far away, but that's not a significant threat. So that's basically what we're trying to do, and this is exactly how I think about it. I try to think about the circle like this. This is where tracking Roadhog's hook becomes good as well. Because Roadhog, and this is why I love to use Roadhog as an example for this, his zone of threat actually changes depending on his hook, right? Because his range is 20 meters, because his zone of threat is 20 meters because that's his hook range. But when his hook is on cooldown, his zone of threat is no longer 20 meters. His zone of threat suddenly shrinks significantly to basically point blank, and a little bit further out than that because he's also got, like, his right-click range, right? So his zone of threat changes from 20 meters to basically point blank, and his right-click range as well when his hook is on cooldown. So that suddenly makes it significantly easier for us to position around Roadhog, because imagine our effective range is only like 20 meters as well, right? Then if we know if his hook is up, that's really scary, because our zone of threats are the same. So if he's in our circle, we're in his circle as well. So then we need to position around things like cover and shields more effectively to balance out the fact we have to get into his range. But if we see he uses his hook, for the next 8 seconds, his zone of threat is no longer 20 meters. It shrinks dramatically. So now we can put our 20 meter circle over him without worrying about it, because his zone of threat is suddenly shorter. So that's how I like to think about zone of threat. And that's the other, like, big aspect of positioning outside of, like, cover and shields and all of that. Like, zone of threats is the big thing. So that's how I envision it in my head. So there you go. Positioning, biggest thing to focus on in the game. After that, tracking ultimates is a big thing. I think it's more important to track your team's ultimates rather than the enemy team's ultimates a lot of the time. Because one of the easiest ways to, like, throw a game, particularly if you're on the defending team, is to overcommit, like, 3 ultimates to a team fight when you only had to use 1. So if you can, like, if you just, like, and it's, like, easy to track your team's ultimates because you can just push tab a lot, and you know what your team's ult charge is, right? So you don't need to track, like, percentages or anything like that. Just, like, push tab and see who has their ultimate. And that's enough. Like, that's good enough. You push tab, because then if you're playing, like, one of the DPS, if you push tab and see the other DPS has their ultimate, that's the kind of thing that affects how you use your ultimate. So that's important to know, because it plays into how you're going to use your abilities. And then tracking the other team's ultimates follows right after that. And those are, like, the big things for, like, where your focus should be in-game. Well, I've realized I skipped this. I should have appended this to positioning as well. Watching your flanks also applies to positioning, because if you know that the enemy team has got, like, a Sombra, then you want to be careful positioning around common Sombra areas, right? Or, like, if they've got a Reaper, you want to be careful positioning around places where Reaper commonly likes to flank from, right? So, what's a good example for this? Volskaya Industries, second checkpoint. Reapers love to teleport, we're defending, right? Reapers love to teleport over the right-hand side over the water. So if you're And they also like to go the other way as well, but they love to teleport over the right-hand side. So you want to be careful of that area if there's a Reaper on the enemy team. You also want to be careful of the left side as well, because they also like to teleport up to the moving platforms and go that way as well. But if you know they have a Reaper, you need to worry about these things more. If they've only got Soldier, McCree, you don't need to worry about the right-hand side at all, because nobody can take advantage of those flank routes now. You do have to worry about the left-hand side still, because they can feasibly flank from those locations. It's not advised for Soldier and McCree to do that, but they will do it anyway. But you know that you can disregard the right-hand side as not being a flank, or the left-hand side from your perspective defending. You can disregard the left side as being threatened because they don't have a flanker that can go over the side. So now you can position more to like the left side of the catwalk, and it makes it easier to track the right side because you're further away, you're looking more in that direction. It's easier to keep track of it, and they have to cover more ground to get to you. So watching your flanks also plays into positioning as well, mostly in regards to what the enemy team actually has, because if they don't have a flanker, you don't have to worry about flank routes. But if they have a flanker, you need to think about where those flankers are most likely to approach from, and watch them carefully, and try to avoid spending time near those locations if you don't know exactly where the flanker is at that point in time. So, yeah, those are, like, the most important things to focus on. Positioning is by far most important, and you should definitely focus on improving that first if you struggle with it, because the sooner you can get that into muscle memory, the better. And my son has arrived just in time for a cameo appearance right at the end of the video. Hello, my semi-transparent boy. I'm also semi-transparent. The green screen doesn't work too well. It's a little too well lit, so it has to overcompensate. Green screens are kind of annoying to get working, but they make me look professional and like I know what I'm talking about. He said, wearing a squid on his head. Yes, hello, my son. Wave to the friends. Hello, yes, there we go. So, anyway, that's basically, those are the things that that's how you should balance your focus in game. But for God's sake, don't, like, worry about all of those things, like improving all aspects of game sense at once. Focus on one thing at a time and improve that. Then refocus onto a new thing, improve that, carry on until complete. And, like, don't worry about, like, certain things. Like, there's some stuff you do not need to worry about when you're in lower ranks, and it's the kind of stuff, especially while you're just learning the game, and it's the kind of stuff that will just bog you down. For example, this is an example I also always love to give. Where there's a specific piece of advice you can give to Soldier 76 players where you can animation cancel his reload, because he does the animation where he slams the clip in and then the gun cocks. He's actually done reloading once he's put the ammo in. The cocking animation is unnecessary. So you can be more efficient playing Soldier by using his abilities to cancel the reload animation, because all of his abilities, including Sprint, will cancel the cocking animation, thereby you're slightly more efficient by canceling the reload with an ability. This is something I never tell to people below Platinum, because it's not worth them worrying about. If you're playing Soldier and you're in Bronze and Silver, I do not want you worrying about animation canceling while you're in Bronze and Silver. I want you to worry about positioning and how to use your abilities. I want you to worry about animation canceling your reload when you're, like, in Platinum, because this is the point where you've resolved most big issues, and at this point we're talking about refining your gameplay on the hero, so the animation canceling becomes more important. But if you're in Bronze and Silver, like, they're gonna be sitting there, like, worrying about canceling their reload every time they're reloading, when they should just be worrying about stuff like, am I stood in the middle of an open field right now versus a Widowmaker? That's what they should be worrying about. So, like, don't worry about shit like that if you're, like, learning how to play, like, the game or a hero. It's not, like, you don't need to worry about, like, these micro efficiencies. Worry about the big things first. Worry about positioning, how to use your ultimate, playing around the enemy team, you know, stuff like that, way more important. Zone of threats, big circles. picture circles everywhere. It's so much easier. So thank you very much for watching, if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 PM EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.